A lot of updates on Trump's attack against the judiciary. If you see this as part of a broader story, you see a very authoritarian one. The clip you're seeing on screen is from Trump's delivery of a speech at the Justice Department. We already talked about that. That's not what this is about. But there he's talking about the media is illegal for criticizing him. He's talking about how judges that he likes, it shouldn't be legal to criticize them. And then he's freaking out recently that a judge would dare to interpret the law and say, hey, maybe this Alien Enemies Act invocation for the purpose of deportations isn't a lawful use of this wartime authority because we're not in wartime. And this caused a lot of MAGA rage. But before getting into updates on that, Trump's reaction to it, let's go through some context. Remember, as we talked about in a different segment, all of this has prompted a rare statement from the conservative Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, to say for more than 2 centuries, it's been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreements concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that reason. A public rebuke of Trump, who had been calling, as we're about to see, for this judge to be impeached for doing their job. All of this come with the context of numerous, now I'll remind you in a second, numerous contradictions of rulings to the Trump administration's actions. They're choosing not to abide by lawful court orders. And this is happening, again, within the context of them also undermining the authority of Congress through many of the DOJ actions that shut down agencies without congressional approval. So the ultimate message being sent is we don't think the legislative or judicial branch, in at least certain circumstances, is legitimate. Which, what does that sound like? Not separation of powers. I can tell you that for sure. So quick context. You've probably heard, but in an effort to deport gang members who are not in the United States legally, the Alien Enemies Act was invoked by the Trump administration, a wartime authority that essentially subverts due process. So without the normal process for deportation that legally plays out, these folks were deported. As the flight was taking them to El Salvador, they're Venezuelan, but they're taking El Salvador to be put in these camps, overseen by the El Salvador president Bukele. Judge had sort of a quick ruling to say, well, you need to turn that flight around because we need to see if this is, contradicting due process. Trump administration delivered them anyways, now in violation of this court ruling. That led to Trump posting this. And as I'm going through this, just remember, because some MAGA people will try to straw man, our argument is not don't go after public safety threats. Obviously, that should happen with folks who are in the United States illegally and are public safety threats. Obviously, you deport them. It's about us following the law while doing so. What I'm about to tell you is a story of someone who was swept up and allegedly is not a gang member and did go through legal channels and thus was seeking legal asylum and got swept up and now is completely missing. And that's what happens whenever you violate due process. So don't allow for them to straw man the argument we're making. We want as bad as anyone. That's why Biden also is deporting folks with criminal records. We want people who are public safety threats to be gone from the country. But we also follow the law. This radical left lunatic of a judge or troublemaker and agitator who was sadly appointed by Barack Hussein Obama was not elected president. He didn't win the popular vote by a lot. He didn't win all 7 swing states. He didn't win 2,750 to 525 counties. He didn't win anything I won for many reasons in an overwhelmingly mandate, but fighting illegal immigration may have been the number one reason for this historic victory. I'm just doing what the voters wanted me to do. This judge, like many of the crooked judges I'm forced to appear before, should be impeached. We don't want vicious, violent, and demented criminals. Many of them deranged murderers in our country. Make America great again. Which was the justification, as Axios reported on, of the White House ignoring a judge's order to turn back deportation flights. But why? Why does due process matter? Why is a judge saying you might be using this Alien Enemies Act unlawfully? Well, Sam Stein reports, I spoke with a lawyer who says her client, an LGBTQ Venezuelan who came to the U.S. seeking asylum through proper channels, was deported as part of the Alien Enemies Act sweep. She says he was not a Tren de Aragua member and that ICE misidentified his tattoos. And so hastily, for the sake of these videos they posted of, look, we're getting them, yay, and sort of the PR type stuff, for the sake of that, instead of just keep the folks detained, obviously, but let's go through the normal lawful process, and then bye-bye to the ones who they're being alleged to be, because there are some terrible people alleged who are a part of this group. But does that mean that we completely abandon our dedication to lawful asylum seekers? No, of course not. We want the members of the gang to be gone. It doesn't mean that you abandon the lawful process. Again, I know a little bit of silliness they're thrown in, but this is very, very serious. Trump, speaking on this, had this to say as well about the judge.
Do you plan to comply with the judge's order regarding rehiring the federal workers?
What are you talking about?
The Clinton appointee judge that ruled that the federal government has to rehire the fired federal workers. Do you plan to comply
Well,
with that?
I think it's absent. I have nothing to do with that other than I heard about the decision. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely. It's a judge that's putting himself in the position of the President of the United States, who was elected by close to 80 million votes. And you have that. You're having more and more of that. It's a very dangerous thing for our country. And I would suspect that we're going to have to get a decision from the Supreme Court. But that's a very dangerous decision for our country. These are people, in many cases, they don't show up for work.
Okay, so very dangerous. Then he got more upset and posted what you saw, which was him saying, this person just wants demented, terrible criminals in the country. False. But what do we have? What do we have if we give up on the very law and order that they say they stand for? And we allow presidents to act in violation of court orders and in violation of the law by invoking laws that aren't relevant to what we're talking about. The Biden administration. The Obama! Is that what he said? No. I screamed the wrong part there, but you get the point. The Obama administration. And before, prioritized folks with criminal records for deportation. And also didn't throw out due process. Because without it, and without the structure of laws that protects the innocent, what do we have? And this is not the only time that they've said judiciary. Pfft, who ever heard of it? New York Times reports judge blocks Trump's funding freeze, saying White House put itself above Congress. The judge had already ruled that the administration was not complying with his previous order requiring the government to keep dispersing money to states. So this is another time. They'll go, oh, okay, no, this ruling we don't like, so we're not going to abide by it. So much so that I read you again, for more than 2 centuries, Chief Justice John Roberts said, and this is super rare, from the legal experts that I've heard analysis from, this is shocking them that he said this. It has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. So what do you do if you don't like the ruling of a judge? You appeal it. And if you appeal it, it gets to the Supreme Court, and that's the ultimate say on it. But again, that is the system that we have. So you might be wondering, a lot of this seems pretty black and white. Why are so many people just jacked to defend Trump anyways? Well, a lot of them have been convinced that the only real litmus test for a good leader is if they own the libs or make the libs cry. Nancy Mace has an energy drink that she likes.
Snowflake and sugar-free. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Liberal tears energy.
So the energy drink, apologies for the coughing, but a nice little speck of something is having a lot of fun in the back of my throat. Liberal Tears is the name of that energy drink. Liberal Tears. If your ideology, this is why I always tell you, you have to make sure you're clear on what you stand for, and what you stand for should then define what you stand against, not the other way around. So we stand against Trump, yes. And a lot of what I talk to you about is That got crazy, right? To sum it up. But that's because of what I've defined as what I stand for. So on one thing, I do believe in liberal democracy, in individual freedoms, in liberty. And those principles inform my opposition of his authoritarianism, right? Okay. But it's not, I don't like his orange makeup, so now I am a liberal, right? You have to frame it, you have to come to a conclusion the correct way in politics. But what has broken a lot of MAGA brains is the belief that as long as the libs are crying, that energy drink is literally titled Liberal Tears, I guess. By the way, this noise one more time. I won't do it again. What? So check all of yourselves too. If you're in my audience and you think that we sort of align-ish on our ideologies, please check yourself to make sure your only priority is not owning the other side, roasting, destroy. Those, sometimes we got to do some destroying, right? In the loose YouTube title term. Sometimes we got to oppose. Sometimes we got to aggressively oppose, politically, electorally, rhetorically. But that's not for the purpose of wrecking the other side. It's because we believe that the other side would be better off if we could uplift everyone. They're better off if they don't get the Trump dictatorship sometimes it seems they want. Our ultimate goal is for everyone to be better off, including the people who hate us the most. And that is so contradicted. So to answer the question I asked before playing the Nancy Mace clip, the reason that a lot of them are okay with it is because all of this violating judge orders, cutting off funds to people, throwing out due process, etc., it is all perceived as owning the libs, as destroying the libs, as making them cry. And that's enough for a lot of people, unfortunately. For some of them, though, it's just absolutely psycho ideologies like Valentina Gomez, saying this is cheaper than deportation. And it's her shooting somebody. I'm going to take that off screen, actually. That could be a violation of something. A fake person, but it's her demonstrating a point. And you will never guess what's in her description, in her bio. Christ is king. Christ is king. This is such a weird thing. We'll get to some of the most brutal. Luke, I hope that your head gets put into a meat grinder, and then I want to eat what comes out the other side, and then I want to stab you. And then I look at their bio, and it's Christ is king. love God, love people. It's like, what the heck is going on here? I don't think Christ would endorse such imagery, Valentina. Hate to say it. Another brutal story of what happens when you throw out the proper laws that we should abide by and due process is this front one. A green card holder living in the United States for almost 2 decades was detained by immigration authorities in America and violently interrogated after returning from Luxembourg. This is from the Luxembourg Times. His mother said, this is being alleged. Fabian Schmidt, a German citizen and green card holder living in New Hampshire, was detained at Logan International Airport in Boston over a week ago. And just listen to this story. The 34-year-old electrical engineer has been living in the United States since 2007 and has held a permanent residence permit since 2008. On his return to the United States, Schmidt was told by officials from U.S. Customs and Border Protection that his green card had been flagged. And then he was reportedly questioned intensively for several hours without being told why. His mother told Newsweek that her son was violently interrogated, stripped naked, placed under a cold shower, and pressured to surrender his green card. This is a legal green card holder. Schmidt was deprived of sleep, food, and water, as well as his prescribed medication for anxiety and depression, according to the news report. He ultimately was diagnosed with the flu. These are being denied, as you can imagine, from Customs and Border Protection. But this is what his mom is alleging. This is not America. It's not what America should be. David Frum posted, Trump claims power to overturn Article 1 of the Constitution, Congress's authority over spending. Article 2, predecessor's pardon power. He's been saying that Biden's pardons aren't legitimate because of the auto pin lie they've been telling about that being. And Article 3, by defying a federal court order. Don't just observe these things one at a time, but see them all together. And I think David Frum assesses it correctly there. Share your thoughts in the comments.